Okay, so this video is about the second theme that we're going to talk about in anatomy and physiology. And this is that all living systems display a hierarchical organization. So if we start with us, there, little I. So we start with us. We are what we would call, or what is called, organisms. So our body is an organism. It is the most complex structure of anatomy and physiology. Okay. As an organism, we are made up of, or we function through things called organ systems. So by organ systems, we mean, or I mean, things like the cardiovascular system. And the cardiovascular system, we have hearts, we have vessels, we have blood to run through those vessels. Blood carries things like oxygen and carbon dioxide and nutrients and things to all of our cells and all of that. So, we've got to have that. And this cardiovascular system is an organ system, and that it is made up of those organs, the heart and the vessels and the blood. So we also have the urinary system. Okay, for example, so the urinary system kind of works with the cardiovascular system. It's made up of the kidneys, the ureters, the bladder, the urethra, filters the blood, helps get rid of wastes, keeps or holds onto water or gets rid of water, fluids, that type of thing. We also have the respiratory system. So we have lungs and bronchioles and a trachea, and that allows us to bring in air from the atmosphere, bring in oxygen, and breathe out, get rid of the waste of carbon dioxide. Okay, so we're made up of all of these organ systems, and these are just examples of that. There's also reproductive, skeletal, muscular, nervous, all of that. So these organ systems are made up of organs, which we just talked about. So in this example, we've got the heart. We've got kidneys. We've got lungs. And those are all organs that function within these organ systems. Okay. Well, organs are made up of something too. We can break those down even further. So organs are made out of something we call tissues. All organs are made up of a minimum of 2 tissues. We call this histology. Histology. All right. There are 4 main tissue types. So we have epithelial tissue. And epithelial tissue is all over the body. It lines stuff. Your skin is an epithelial tissue. It covers your body, so it lines and covers things. We have connective tissue, and there's all kinds of different types of connective tissue. We have muscle tissue, so we can move around and move the things inside our body. And then we have nervous tissue. So these things can communicate and be controlled. Okay, so tissues are not the simplest form. What are tissues made up of? Tissues are made up of cells. This in a different color. So cells. Okay, so the cells are the smallest independently functioning unit of a living organism. So the smallest independently functioning unit of a living organism. Okay, so their whole body is made up of a bunch of cells. And these cells that do similar things come together to form tissues. Okay, so ultimately your tissues do what your cells can do. Okay, so from that is not the smallest thing. Okay, cells are made out of something. Cells are made of chemicals. So we'll go to another color. So chemicals. All right, and chemicals are made out of atoms. Okay, so atoms are also made out of smaller things called subatomic particles. We've got protons, neutrons, and electrons. Okay, these protons, neutrons, and electrons form atoms, and those chemicals form molecules that are either inorganic or organic molecules. All right, so this part here, this is non-living. All right, and these non-living things create the living things, which start as cells. Okay, so that is the hierarchy of how our body is made. This is basically how we're going to study this course. We're going to start with molecules. We're going to talk about chemistry, which may scare some of you, but it'll be okay. Then that'll be just chapter 2, because here we are in chapter 1. Chapter 2 is chemistry, and then we'll talk about the cell. Chapter 3 talks specifically about the cell. And then chapter 4, we go move on to tissues. Chapter 5, we start organ systems. Now, why do we go from tissues to organ systems instead of to organs? Well, you can't really talk about organs without talking about the system that they're working in, okay, to understand them. So starting in chapter 5, we go to specific systems, and that would be the integument, which is the skin. So this is how the body is structured. Okay, so this is most complex to least complex, or you can list it from least complex, so chemicals, all the way up to most complex, which is the organism.